Hi, my name is Tobias Haberkorn. You're listening to Airlift from Berlin Review. Today we're talking about a story that has consumed the German media over the last weeks. Okay, so 4 weeks ago, Der Spiegel ran...
Can you start again? That was a bit weird.
Was that 4 weeks ago? I don't even know.
I think it was 4 weeks ago. I was at a party, I remember, when I heard about it. I think it was 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, Der Spiegel broke a big story where Collien Fernandes, a TV presenter and actress, is accusing her now ex-husband, they are separated, of creating various social media profiles, fake social media profiles of her, chatting with unknown men or men of her entourage, divulging sexual imagery of hers, and basically having, as she says it in the article, raped him virtually.
Raped her virtually.
Yes, raped her virtually. And, you know, ever since, this has been a huge discussion in the German media. Last week there was new reporting about a series that the guy, his name is Christian Ulmen, had shot last fall, and that contains some elements that are very, very similar to some fictional elements that are very similar to the case. We can discuss that later. But Lauren, how did you learn about the case, and did you even know these people? Like, do you have any connection to this world of German TV?
I don't have that much of a connection to the world of German TV, though. I also don't have that much of a connection to the world of American television at this point. But I was at a house party, I guess like a month ago, and a German friend and a friend who has a German wife were on the balcony talking about this, and I came quite late into the conversation, and then they sort of debriefed me on what was on what had happened, and I guess maybe it had been that day or the day before that this Spiegel feature came out. And they summarized the case as these two very famous German media personalities, Christian Ulmen and his Ulmen, excuse me. I was corrected by my German friend about the pronunciation of this. Ulmen and his now ex-wife, basically his ex-wife, Collien Fernandes, is a very beautiful woman in the German media. Has been sexualized quite early in her career, and for the last 10 or so years has struggled because people have been making deep fake images of her, making fake pornographic images of her. People have been doing this kind of like digital harassment that is becoming more and more common for women in the public eye. And she had struggled with this for a long time. And she didn't know who was doing it. She never knew who was doing it, who was behind it. And even they said this, when you're summarizing the story, you have to also know that in 2024, she made a 2-part documentary with ZDF about trying to figure out who was making these deepfake images and videos of her, these pornographic deepfake images and videos of her. She couldn't figure it out. And at the end of this documentary, she files a complaint in Berlin, like a legal complaint, against persons unknown, right? So this is how it was presented to me. And then I guess that day of this house party that I was at, or the day before, it came out that she was accusing her now ex-husband, Christian Ulmen. Ulmen. She was accusing him of having not created these images, not done this, but participating in her online harassment by making fake social media accounts, posing as her, and corresponding with various men and sending them what she says are images of women who look like her in various sexual acts. And so at the time, I was like, I don't know who these people are. And then I went home and looked it up, and I realized I did know who Christian Ulmen was. He was the star of this film Herr Lehmann from 2003, which I watched when I was being more aggressive about improving my German.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, I know who that guy is, but I think you can probably explain a little bit more about his significance to Germany and for this
Yeah,
case.
that movie you mentioned, Herr Lehmann by Leander Hausmann, is from 2003.
Yeah.
And I think Ulmen's career in German TV started a little earlier than that.
Yeah.
It actually started with MTV in London at a time when MTV was starting to broadcast in Europe from London, and Ulmen, as a 20-year-old guy, was casted and spoke on this MTV show with a very thick, heavy, exaggerated German accent, which was part of his sort of like personality. And then MTV launched their own German branch, and he was part of the first cohort of moderators there. And he quickly became this like linked to MTV a lot. He had his own TV show there and was his breakout role in the Leander Hausmann film Herr Lehmann, which is set in Berlin and Kreuzberg, so in the area where we're recording, in 2003. And then basically it was a little difficult for me to sort of like recollect his entire career, because I personally stopped watching German TV more or less around the time when he took off, like around 2003 and 4. But he had a thriving career in German private TV. So public broadcasting with ARD and ZDF is very, very strong in Germany and well financed. And Ulmen was always in the sort of like advertisement funded free private TV, where an entire cosmos exists of people who have some sort of like celebrity status in Germany. But for me, it's a bit arcane because I'm not like a consumer of this, like many people I think of my generation who are much more exposed to Netflix, American series, or especially also in the comedy segment where Ulmen is actually making his career. Watching German comedy is quite rare because it's not on the, it's just not in my feed. It's not on the platforms I normally watch. So right. Ulmen has had, ever since the 2000s, thriving career in this ecosystem, as has had Collien. Collien as well started, I think, with the Viva platform, which was a sort of German attempt to copy the MTV music television concept in the early 2000s. And she was part of a group of young women, especially, as you've mentioned, who were sort of like doing these cheeky moderations in the early 2000s. Those are also the years when, you have Britney Spears and everything is
ironic and like
ironically sexualized.
Raunchy, yeah.
And she was certainly sexualized, as you said, as a young woman quite heavily in that TV universe, and made her career in this as well. And then I think they got married in 2011 or 2012. So they were like a perfect couple of that universe. Collien has then went on and took on more like movie roles. She's been starring in Das Traumschiff, which is the sort of like perfect Sunday night family series that everyone will watch, or a lot of Germans will watch on the public TV, for example, at Christmas. So she has that role there, and and it came as a huge shock to so many people to see that it was actually, her accusation is that the main driver, at least in the last couple of years, of the online identity theft and really, really obnoxious, I don't know how to call this, like sexual molestation that she was suffering.
She calls it like what she calls it, and what other people refer to it as is digital violence or digital sexual violence.
Yes.
So we can call it that as well. Yeah.
So it came as this huge shock to a quite large group of people that she's accusing Ulmen of being actually the main driver behind
But
that.
is she accusing him of being the main? My understanding of this case, and also we should say that this case is like quite complicated. Because not just because like the legal issue of digital sexual harassment is quite complicated, but also because there are like lots of accusations and lots of like bad things have happened to Collien Fernandes specifically on the internet. And
Yes.
I don't think she's not accusing him of like doing all of this, right?
No, not all of it.
Just participating and doing some things right against her. Like we should be pretty clear about that.
Yes.
And also their relationship as it has come out is also quite messy, I think.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we just have to be like kind of clear that like the media storm around this, as far as I can understand it, is like quite dramatic, as you say, because it's really shocking because it was this kind of like star like TV couple.
Yeah.
But
I think
for some other reasons, it's not that shocking, right? Because, you know, you mentioned that he came up kind of in private, like fry, like TV scene. And my understanding is he had like a reputation for like kind of edgy, provocative, like sort of
Absolutely,
work
yeah.
that maybe would not fly so well on public television, right?
There's several layers to what she's now coming out about to the press. She's been, as you mentioned, publicly advocating against deepfake pornography for years, because she was, and she's not the only celebrity who's suffering this kind of abuse, but she was a very prominent case of this in for like as far as German celebrities are concerned. So, but the Spiegel report that went into detail of what she's now accusing her husband of contains several other elements. For example, also physical violence that Ulmen had exerted, and most importantly, like the centerpiece is that in 2024, at Christmas, while they were both traveling, they have been living in Mallorca for a couple of years at that point, and they're traveling back to Hamburg, and are supposed to meet the in-law, like his family. And she reads in her hotel room he reads a report about an interview that she gave on the molestation that she suffers, and then he suddenly makes this confession that, you know, actually I was the one who created all these fake social media profiles and did chats and email exchanges and in your name with men who were like sexually interested in you.
Yeah, well, what she says happened is that they were at this hotel in Hamburg, and he was reading an interview with her where she says, or someone says, that she filed this criminal complaint,
yes,
right, with Berlin. And as she tells Der Spiegel, she says that he freaked out and thought he was going to go to jail. So this led him to confess, allegedly, right? Yeah. And what he confessed is not that he made any deep fake videos. It's that he had created a bunch of fake accounts in her name and corresponded with various people as her becoming increasingly sexual.
Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And she's like, what the fuck? And this happened, she says, in Christmas 2024.
Exactly. And I think what we have to sort of like understand is how big a scandal this was and how big a splash this made in the German media scene, because Ulmen was so well connected. He had worked with and like almost everyone in this sort of like entertainment scene that exists in the German speaking world. In his TV series, you know, rappers, other actors, like so many people had appearances. And so it was a moment where everyone was like now watching very closely how people would also take their distances with him. And then the whole conversation quickly moved to the political sphere, where Fernandes also underlined that bringing her case against her ex-husband in Spain, for example, would be much more advantageous for her, because legislation on these topics is much more lax in Germany. So in the last 3 weeks, we've seen public demonstrations that focus on making the law with regard to digital sexual abuse much more severe. And the German justice minister came out last week also with a new proposition for a law that is actually introducing a couple of elements into the code of law that makes it more easy to prosecute this type of case. So that's an ongoing conversation.
Well, yeah, also she says, the reason that she came out about it or decided to speak about it, and it's a very long article in Der Spiegel, and she sat for many hours of interviews, they say.
Yeah.
And offered, she offered lots of documents and all this kind of stuff. The reason she says she decided to come out about it, and I listened to a podcast where a couple of the presenters were criticizing her a little bit for making this public, or questioning whether she should have made this public because they have a child, and the child would now know that its father had done this. But the reason Collien Fernandes says she's making it public is because, these, specifically for this political reason, right? Because, these laws there are these loopholes, as they're referred to in the media, for, specifically digital sexual harassment and violence, and the loopholes need to be closed, right?
Exactly.
And that's true. That's true. But, it's funny. I mean, we talked about this a little bit, a couple of weeks ago. There was this hearing or something at the Bundestag, and someone, a woman was giving a kind of a speech about sexual violence, and didn't Merz make some kind of horrible comment? It was clearly about this case, right?
Yes.
And then Merz made some stupid comment about violence against women, basically blaming migrants for this.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was part of the first couple of round of reactions. It quickly escalated to the political sphere, and then Merz made this really stupid comment where he was sort of launching into a general consideration about violence against women, and ended on basically, but we shouldn't forget that how much of this is imported by migrants who make Germany, more unsafe for women. So he was taking the occasion.
The migrants influenced Christian Ulmen, the famous MTV VJ from Germany.
What
are you talking about?
Yeah. But this is actually the legal considerations are, of course, very important, but this is not the topic that we want to have this conversation on.
No.
I was more interested and wanted to bring this topic to discussion with you, about how the culture and how the German culture reacts to this type of situation, and how and if Christian Ulmen as a public figure and as a figure who was really, really important in leading in the German, especially comedy world. He won the most important comedy awards. He had the production companies, his a series of his own shows. How this would shake up this entire scene. And I think what's interesting, or what's lacking, insofar as I've sort of understood the reception of the case, is that very few people want to actually take the difficult look at his cultural production of the last 20 years and try to make some analysis, if whether or not, and if how, and what we can say about the connection between his public persona, the type of humor that he produced for now 20 years, and what now his wife is accusing him of. The parallels between his various sort of fictionalizing or fictionalized TV productions and this actual case are just so scary. It's so easy to look at the public comedy persona that he was producing and then go, yes, of course, he would do something like this in real life. And I think, and that's a difficult, jump to make, especially for critics like us. But I think in this case, it's just so obvious that the type of humor that he was propagating is very, very deranged, very crass, extremely misogynist. And the reason why he could do this, I'm trying to wrap my hand around this, of course, because I'm not a fan, I'm not a consumer of this type of humor. I haven't been for 20 years, and now I'm trying to sort of like come to terms with it. And for me, it's also a way of going back to this German TV world that I feel like personally so disconnected from. I'm just trying to understand, what are they actually doing there? And why is this supposed to be funny?
Well, I certainly don't know. Don't know why it's supposed to be funny to me. So I watched, like I said, I've seen Herrlehmann, and then I rewatched it yesterday, and I perused some Jerks, his TV series, in which Collien Fernandes also stars as his ex wife.
Yes,
right,
exactly.
And a couple of other things that he's done. You probably have seen much more, but it seems to me that everything that I've seen of him involves a slacker kind of bumbling man who is like crass, unfortunate situations are coming at him from the outside, and perhaps because he's a slacker and like not prepared and like kind of a douchebag a little bit, like maybe he makes like worse out of them. But it's kind of this like character, which is the very common male character, not just in Germany, but like, you know, in lots of media, this kind of like big doofus who doesn't know what's going on. And then like, because he doesn't know what's going on, like he accidentally kind of, or like not accidentally, but sort of stumbles upon, you know, so sort of bad things, right? Like it's like, it's not like he's manipulative. It's actually kind of this character, this male character who is blameless initially, right? Like, you know what I'm saying?
He definitely plays the sort of like quote unquote common man.
Yeah.
Which I think is also part of why he was so popular among men, clearly. I mean, there have been women writing about Jerks, the TV series we're now talking about, which started airing in 2017, which has Collien Fernandes in it. And in the episode we both watched now to prepare this session, there's, for example, also the German rapper Sido in it, who is a super famous figure in German rap. So, and that's not the only appearance of like German celebrities in this series, which ran over 5 seasons and ended in 2023. And I think Collien played in it until the very end. And Jerks was celebrated. It won 3 German Comedy Awards. I went back and read a bunch of reviews that came out of the show, and they were genuinely very positive. You know, published in Süddeutsche and all the outlets. And what people praised about it, and what I find so questionable and just like baffling or interesting as something we could analyze, is that it was reviewed and praised as subversive humor. And the way in which it is subversive, if it is very, very primitive and very basic. For example, the second episode of the first season is centered around Ulmen and his best friend Farid Yardim, who's actually a good friend of his from his childhood days, and who's playing the sidekick in the entire show. They're both married, and their wives are friends. And Ulmen finds out that his wife and his friend's wife and his ex-wife,
which is Collien,
so that these 3 women go to a masturbation class.
Yeah, okay. I want to pause here just for a second. Because, okay, so when I started watching this, right, also we should say in Jerks, everyone is playing themselves, right? A version of themselves, right? The Christian Ulmen's character's name is Christian, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And Collien's character's name is Collien.
Absolutely.
Okay, So I don't know if
And
everyone.
and plus there is, to make it really clear,
Mhm.
there is this sort of like overlay in the beginning that clearly states all of this is based on real facts.
Yeah,
So the
which is like
opposition of the
ironic.
usual
Yeah.
disclaimer.
It's like
Yeah.
it's ironic. So they say. So I start watching this episode, which Tobias sent to me. Like he's like, watch this. You know, here's a link. So I start watching this, and you know, my German's fine. It's not that good. Like you know, when you are operating in your second language, you're like, is this correct? Now, the premise of this show is that Christian's girlfriend or new wife is going to a Masturbationskurs
Yes.
with his ex-wife. Now, to me, I'm like, does that have some kind of connotation that I'm not understanding? Like, what does that mean? I've never heard of such a thing.
No,
And
it's actually
like, what's going on? I'm like, there must be some kind of like translation issue here, because I'm like, it can't simply be that. Now,
no, it's worse than that.
it's
The women go to this class,
yeah,
which is presented as a sort of like
yoni type.
Yes, like open your chakras, whatever.
Yeah.
This sort of like very emancipated,
Self-love practice.
sex positive educator is there, and then you know a bunch of things go down, and Ulmen's character, together with his best friend, they find out about this, and they go actually to spy
It's
on the workshop session. And then the women find out about it. They chase them, you know, down the staircase, and they have a fallout. And then the women decide, as a punishment, you will now join me and the other husband as well, and you will all come to our masturbation class together. This is the sort of like, and this is basically the whole joke.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, to me, like, is this funny to you?
I don't know. I don't think it is.
I mean, this is.
I don't think
you
it
know,
is.
I don't like to traffic too much in like German stereotypes. Like,
Yeah.
I live here. I like living in Germany, more or less. I have some friends who are German. But you know, it's like you're not famous for. Some of my best friends are German. But you guys are not famous for like your sense of. Well, you're famous for your sense of humor, but not for good reasons, right? And so you encounter something like this, and you're like, is this serious? Like, I open out of the goodness of my heart and my generosity of spirit, I allow that like Germans can be funny. Like I know some really funny Germans, and I'm like, you know, we should stop stigmatizing them.
Yeah.
Like, not all Germans. And then you encounter something like this, and you're like I was rooting for you. You know what I mean? Like, can you
joke? If there is a joke, it is just in, I don't know, it's just you're supposed to laugh about this whole masturbation thing, and it's like it plays also, I think, with a supposedly transgressive body positivity. It's not a problem to show sexual things on TV, kind of thing, which I don't know would maybe lend less well in an American setting. Leaning into the other stereotype about Germans, that they're very open about sex.
In certain contexts, yes.
In certain contexts.
In the correct context, yes.
And
in a course,
that's
yes.
Basically it. That's basically the joke. Yeah. And the whole, the rest of the series as well, is on that level.
Well, it's also, I think if we want to analyze the structure of this particular episode kind of more in depth, the idea is they are like, you know, the husbands are like committing a crime, right? Because it's not just their wife. I mean, you shouldn't like, you should not like they're doing voyeurism, but like they're committing a crime by spying on this masturbation class, and then they're caught, and instead of like being punished for the crime, right? Yes. They're violating. Instead of being punished for the crime, their punishment is they get to watch again. You know what I mean? Like they get the like wish fulfillment that is inherent in this episode, and the idea that this is punishment. Like, yes, maybe, but also, of course, everyone should know that like someone who is doing risky, potentially criminal sexual behavior in a semi-obvious way, on some level, wants to be caught and punished in and this can easily be eroticized.
Yes.
So the whole structure of this like joke is
Well,
like,
they get the gratification, and by the way, at the end of
and
this
the gratification
episode,
of being punished by women. You know what I
yes,
mean? Like
yeah, yeah.
it's too much.
Yeah. So what I try to understand, if this is a type of humor, I personally don't. I'm not a consumer for this. I'm not like I would be bored if I wouldn't have to watch.
You don't have to respect people who like. You don't have to respect people who think it's funny. You can actually just say it's not funny, and people who think it's funny
I don't think
wrong.
it is, but I want to understand I want to understand the mechanism of why it's supposed to, how this humor actually works, and I think the problem that I have, I wouldn't join the chorus of those who say that Germans don't have humor. I think there is German humor clearly, but it's
you've been funny once or twice.
Okay, thank you. It's a little bit difficult to understand actually how it is funny, and there's a specific kind of. I would go, I would say that Ulmen in Ulmen's humor and the way it works is there's something stereotypically German in it. In that ultimately he plays a jerk, yeah. So he's making a fool of himself, but ultimately the joke is always on the others.
Yeah, I mean, I think because
so it's always humor that sort of like kicks downwards. He performs this goofy guy, but ultimately everything is done so as to sort of like justify or show that he's just a normal man. He did nothing wrong.
Well, that's why it's important.
Things happen to him.
Well, that's why it's important that the setup of so much of this stuff is like, he's like, I'm just a normal guy trying to do my best. And like, all this crazy stuff keeps happening to me. I just hit the microphone, sorry. All this crazy stuff keeps happening to me. And now my ex-wife and my current girlfriend are going to a Masturbationskurs. Like, what's like, no. This whole world is so topsy-turvy. Like, oh, I gotta get drunk a little bit or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, in Herr Lehmann as well, it opens with his character like stumbling home from the bar where he works, and he's drunk, and then like a very dangerous, scary street dog like blocks his way from going home, and he can't go home because he's afraid of the dog, and so he like gets really drunk and falls asleep on the street, and then a police officer wakes him up and is like, hey man, why are you drunk in the street? And he's like, it's not my fault. It's like, oh, it's not my fault, it's never my fault, it's a crazy world, like,
yeah.
And it's always this kind of thing. And so
and pushing it a bit further in Herr Lehmann, the plot of the film basically revolves around the fact that the character that Herr Lehmann, the character that Christian Ulmen plays, has a crush on the female cook of the Wirtschaft, of the bar where they all hang out.
Katja.
And in an also maybe not uncharacteristically German way, he has sort of like problems of expressing his feelings and courting the woman. He's not able to do that. So he becomes kind of passive aggressive about it, playing this goofy guy who doesn't really try, and the woman is so dominant, and so he can't really get to her. So he's actually playing this quite relatively submissive, very reserved man until a final scene, or like the core scene of the movie, happens in a kebab shop at Cottbusser Tor, where she actually tells him, I mean, they had an affair together, but they're not really together. And then she tells him that it's over. Yeah. And he sort of like flips and launches into this like an anger fit, where he says, no. If there's anyone who is allowed to say that it's over, it's me.
I'm not dumping you.
Yeah.
You're not dumping me.
Exactly.
I'm dumping you.
So he needs to assert power. Yeah. Ultimately.
Yeah. And also, I mean, I think that the film, so it's set in 1989, right? And it's set like in Kreuzberg.
That's true,
like it's like, this is also kind of important that he basically like is quite passive, and he's kind of blocked out like much of the world, and he doesn't really pay attention, even though there are signs like his parents, I think, are like, oh, something's happening in East Germany, like something's happening in East Berlin, like, are you watching the news? And it's like, no, nothing's going on. And there's all this kind of signaling that like something bad is going to happen, or something big is going to happen, and you're going to miss it because you are living in this kind of like slacker dirty, grungy slacker paradise where like nothing matters to you and you don't have to like take any actions for your life, right? And then finally, like this, this ends in rupture in various ways, including when the wall comes down and he's like drunk at the bar, right? Like,
maybe it's like we shouldn't overstress this and like go so far as to say, okay, now in a film of 2003 we have the psychogram of Christian Ulmen and of potentially the guy who did all these things to his wife. However, I think it's interesting to look at him as a sort of like archetype of a certain German maleness. And then that's part of the story.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are two elements to this, right? Which is like, if you are an artist of some kind and you're making certain kinds of art, right? You're playing a character over and over. You're playing a type of character. The character is based on you a little bit, like, or you have a relationship to the character that you play. If you're an actor, you have a relationship to, I wrote a novel called Fake Accounts. That's part of the reason why we're talking about this, because I'm interested in fake accounts. You like write a version of yourself that's not necessarily true, but when you are playing this character, you inhabiting a certain persona, like that necessarily it changes you because it is an experience that you have. Like every experience you have changes you. And so I think it's important that we say, like, we're not arguing that in 2003 when he was like a douchebag, like MTV VJ or whatever, all of this was like innate in him, right? It's just that over time, one gets more and more used to playing this character.
Yeah.
And the character then the character is always real. It's really a character that he plays, but you just play it over and over and over.
So it becomes a self-reinforcing
It's a self-reinforcing,
mechanism.
It's like a feedback loop between fiction and reality, right? Like there's no like separation. That's false. But that also means that like, he didn't have to do this. It's not like it was like predestined either. I think there's a little bit of discussion around like, there's lots of interviews he's done where he talked about doing phone sex, like pretending to be a woman when he was 14 and doing phone sex and like calling sad guys.
Did he say that in interviews?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He did like years ago, he did an interview where he said, when I was 14 or 15, I would pretend to be a woman because my voice hadn't dropped yet. So it was pretty easy. And then he would like talk to guys and he was like, oh, you can just tell him anything. But then it got boring. And then there's other things where, certain jokes that he's made that are considered like that people would like to be like, oh, this is prescient. Like, it was all there all along. It's not there all along. Like what happened is like he got used to like more and more, used to this idea or whatever. Or like he has some impulses. We don't know actually what's going on in his mind. But the fact is like at some point, like you take it too far. Like you take it, like you cross the line. Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to say or to establish that there's nothing wrong with edgy humor unless it's like not funny or like bad art. Like there is nothing like morally wrong with making fictional or autofictional or semi-fictional works in which like things like this occur, right? There's nothing wrong with being like a douchebag in a movie. There's nothing wrong with that. Like we need to like maintain the right of artists to make provocative, even bad jokes and play bad characters. What is bad is what he is, the crimes that he is alleged to have committed, right? Yeah. And there's an important distinction between those two things. Now, what does it say about German men broadly? Maybe you can talk about that since you're a German man. I don't know. But I just wanted to give my like manifesto on the relationship between truth and fiction because I think it's important. And I think like, in the US, a little bit before this, there was this endless conversations about the separate, like what's the like, how do we separate the art from the artists, and like like these guys make these write these bad books where there's a bad guy in them who harms women, and there's all this bad movies, and like the critics would treat it as if the movies or the books were real, but the books and the movies are not real. They're movies and books. So
but I think in going back to Ulmen's case,
the Ulmen case, yes,
you have as early as 2011 or so, 2012. So he and Collien have been married for a year or two. He's shooting this TV series that's called Who Wants to Fuck My Girlfriend, where the two protagonists position themselves as brokers of their girlfriends, and there's a hotness contest between the two girlfriends, or the two women, and the guy whose girlfriend has more, suitors and is more desirable and wants to get fucked by more men, wins. So he clearly, I mean, Ulmen in his fictional world has clearly positioned himself. He's played with the idea of being like a broker of the hotness of his wife.
I think there's
and we have this really uncanny extension of that into, if the alleged facts are true, the reality of a husband going online, engaging in flirtatious and sexually explicit chat, etc., divulging imagery of that is supposed to represent his wife. And I mean, we'll never get to the end of the discussion, to what extent is the fiction prescient or predetermines what's going to happen in real life. This is an endless conversation that we've had at least since Harvey Weinstein, forever. But what I found interesting is something else that you said. You said that, provocative, crass, tasteless, etc. humor is okay as long as it's funny.
Yeah, well, also funny is a
well,
it's
funny
not a
also
simple term.
Funny also is something that is, of course, culturally constructed. What we believe is funny changes over time, and I'm interested in the fact, like, why you watch Jerks and I watch Jerks now, and we're like, this isn't even funny. Or even worse, the "Who Wants to Fuck My Girlfriend" thing from the early 2010s. So why was it funny in the first place? Why were people thinking it's funny, and why is it not funny now? And why, what?
I mean,
how have the standards changed?
I want to know if Collien Fernandes thought it was funny at the time. You know what I mean? These are the kind of things that I would like to know from her. Not like in any accusative way, just like accusatory way. Just like, I cannot imagine ever finding that funny, right? It's like too, I mean, I think the German humor, the issue with German humor that I have and that many people have, it's like too too direct.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but his pants are on backwards. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're like, okay, well, who cares if his pants are on backwards? Like, wouldn't it be like, it's like, wouldn't it be funny if, like, I tried to get a bunch of guys to fuck my girlfriend and you're like, no? Like, why? Like, there's no, like, hidden element. Like, so much of humor, I think, is like, speaking something that is speaking something that is not expected or supposed to be spoken.
Yeah.
But the German version of it, like, does it without, like, emphasizing the mystery right there, or the hiddenness of it, or the fact that it's not supposed to be spoken. It's just like they skip a step, which is like, usually with a joke, there's like a pause, and you're like, I know I'm not supposed to make a sex joke right now, but I'm gonna make a sex joke right now. And then everyone, there's both this, like, there's both surprise and relief that the sex joke is made. And here it's like,
it's just saying
it's just sex joke. Like, they're like, we're like, sex joke, like, and you're like, no. What about the foreplay? Like, right? Like, does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, the way jokes land or don't is, as you say, playing with the clear expectation that something's gonna happen, and then you hold it back for a second, and then it happens regardless, or it happens in a slightly different way, and then you have the joke. And I think a lot of the Ulmen type of humor certainly basically just works by saying or doing inappropriate things and thinking that this is enough to make it funny.
I mean, it's kind of like I mean, it's from this early 2000s, like, raunch,
so it's not
MTV culture, right? Like, it's like Jackass kind of stuff, and like this kind of like boyish, but kind of dangerous, reckless teenage boy kind of humor
in a little bit. And then this disclaimer that they run at the beginning of Jerks, this is all based on fact, is also that it's just, okay, it's ironic, quote unquote, but that's just because you're saying the opposite of what's true or what's appropriate, and you think that's enough,
right? Like, it's a simple reversal. It's not it's not enough.
But do you have, like, examples of because when I open my phone, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I'm swamped with British or American comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's, Ricky Gervais or Louis C.K. or Dave Chappelle and so forth. There are so many famous comedians that are also doing transgressive stuff.
Well, yeah, and they also all got canceled, right? Like Louis C.K. is the obvious parallel to this Christian Ulmen case, right? Like he was also doing all this kind of transgressive, like borderline stuff in his show, and then it turned out like he was also like harassing women, right? But what, like, the question, I'm sorry, I just completely interrupted you, but the like, why is that funny?
Well, I would be interested in what you would say about the humor performance of these guys, or if we take, I don't know, Louis C.K. as an example. I don't know him that well. I think he disappeared from the feeds a little bit by the time I really got addicted to Instagram.
Yeah.
But is he, in what way would his type of humor be comparable to Ulmen's? And how does his type of humor work?
Well, I think they both, he also does this kind of like hapless, like normal guy who doesn't know what's going on. And it is like a version of Larry David, like Larry David's, Seinfeld and Curb Your Enthusiasm, especially. But Larry David is like incredibly funny and incredibly witty. And he takes a lot of time to set up the circumstances that then like make him
lead for the joke to land.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like, it's almost like kind of hard to like set up describe a Larry David's like scene, because you have to like be like, anyway, like how did he get in this situation? Whatever. Seinfeld is a bit easier. But nevertheless, like I think Louis C.K. and Christian Ulmen both use this kind of like, I guess the difference with Larry David is Larry David's like, the world doesn't make sense and everyone's kind of dumber than I am. Like the world can't be this stupid, right? And you kind of then identify the people who identify with Larry David or who like Larry David's comedy are people who are like like a bit more intellectual, and like they're like, I also find like everything around me like totally stupid or absurdly stupid sometimes, right?
Yeah.
I can't believe this is happening to me. Whereas like the Louis C.K. Christian Ulmen model is much more like, I'm simple and the world is like too complicated for me, and like I'm victimized by the world's like complication. And so like maybe people who are much more attached to like feeling like I'm a simple, ultimately not virtuous, but not a bad guy.
Yeah.
And then badness is coming at me from all sides.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas there's like a sense of agency in Larry David's comedy, I think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense, and to make like another risky shortcut, it brings us also back to things that Ulmen said. Allegedly said to Collien, which is that, I'm so sorry that I did this to you. I'm so sorry that I created all these fake profiles and enjoyed engaging in chats with other men, pretending I'm you and I'm offering, sexual imagery and so forth. He says, he's allegedly said, I just developed this fetish.
He alleged, so the allegation is that he said this so according to the Spiegel article, he contacted a criminal defense lawyer, and Der Spiegel says that they read the communications that he had with this lawyer.
That's true, exactly.
And when they say, Der Spiegel says that he contacted this lawyer, and in the email, he seemed very contrite, right? Like that he seemed very contrite, and he says, I developed a sexual fetish, and this is like really horrible, and like, like he seemed very remorseful and very apologetic, which is interesting. And he's given no statements publicly. No, he's not made any statements.
Other than his teams of lawyers.
His teams of lawyers gave a press release in response to the Spiegel. And we should also say that they initiated legal action against Der Spiegel for this report for various claims that they say are false.
Exactly.
But not every claim, just some of the claims.
No, their statement is explicitly denying that Ulmen had created and divulged deepfake porn.
Yeah, but nobody said that.
And then there are other things in the Spiegel article that
they
they don't deny.
That's like PR. I mean, it's PR because that's what everybody is saying, right?
Yeah.
Like it's because like people like media literacy, everyone is like this. You know, they're making connections between the deepfake stuff that Collien suffered and this. How German is this? To me, like, I think that, you know, the condition, like, people are going to commit violence and harm against one another.
Yeah.
And the routes that violence takes, like, maybe culturally conditioned or socially conditioned, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if women, if patriarchy if it did not exist and women were the oppressors, like, we would be doing something to men to oppress them. Who knows what it would be? And like, you know, is the question I think that we were asking is like, is there something inherently German about the way this case has played out, or about the accusations against Ulmen, or is this just like could happen anywhere?
Well, what I find, I mean, this is exactly true, and I was gonna say about the public outcry that emerged around Ulmen. It has this, like, many German men spoke up, but a very common reaction was, for example, one that Sascha Lobo had in his podcast. You know, you mentioned that before. He's doing it with his wife, and they're speaking as a couple, and they're like both reassuring themselves that, oh, you would never do this to me, and like, but at the same time, they're sort of like questioning the security of the couple and saying, oh my God, this happened in a marriage, and it's so horrible to imagine that you could be doing something like this to me. But of course I don't, because I trust you. Mm-hmm. And then Lobo goes on this sort of like a little bit of soul searching, and yeah, I guess we have to confront that this is the monstrosity that inhabits all men in some way. But I, of course, would never do it.
Well, I mean, it's
so
like...
no. What I find dissatisfying about this kind of reaction is that a lot of men, I think, are inclined when something like this becomes public to go and say, yes, of course, it's a problematic male behavior, which it is. Mm-hmm. And therefore, I mean, I certainly wouldn't deny that. But then they go like a step further and say, this is some sort of like male trait that
we must all fight against every single day.
We have in each other, but I would never do it. So they like both universalize or essentialize what the specificity of what happened.
Yeah.
And they put themselves on the safe side,
distancing
themselves from the actually murky.
I mean, it's the
middle
same.
Ground.
It's the same as the hashtag not all men, like
of the Ulmen reality.
Yeah.
And what gets lost when you do this sort of like both like personal distanciation, of course, but then also essentialization. It's generally a problem of the male gender. What gets lost is the fine print of, as you said, you know, men will do harm to others. That's absolutely sure, and they have a propensity, you know, to engage in destructive behavior towards women, towards others, also towards themselves. And the question is, what are the conditions for this? Like, what kind of destructive behavior comes out of the conditions that that the culture creates?
Yeah.
And in this case, and with Germany, I mean, it is significant that Ulmen went on doing his shtick, playing his kind of like stereotypically male character, well after Me Too, for example. I find that interesting.
Well, because
That
it's taken so much longer to come here, right? Like that this kind of like reckoning with sexual violence or whatever. Like my understanding is that the German media and the German feminists are sort of like, why not more? Like, why is there no more
yes,
like activism here on this issue?
No, I think there was activism, and I think there
but
was
not
reckoning,
as much.
but there were less spectacular. I mean, if we talk about Me Too in the fall of 2017, you know this better than I do. There was like every day, basically, someone
a new case.
Either the New York media world or in Hollywood was accused of abusive behavior and so forth. And there were less publicized cases at the time in Germany. That's for sure. Yeah, it took a lot longer. For like major revelations, for example, in German cinema to come out, with this director Dieter Wedel, for example, who was accused of misconduct and various things. I don't have the details in mind now, but so there was this reaction after Me Too that it's more like an American thing, probably.
Yeah, I also think this is like German culture. Let's take Berlin, like we can like bracket Berlin a little bit, but like I do think increasingly German culture is like quite conservative, or like has kind of traditional like values, which then lead to like, you know, kind of like, and it's a culture of not even repression, but like we don't talk about everything, right? And so, like, the way that the humor works, or the way that we were just arguing, I was just postulating, like, hypothesizing that the humor works, is like, we just, like, blurt, like, it's like blurting things out, right? Instead of, like, creating a scene and sort of, like, leading up to the joke or leading up to the revelation. And it's, like, this sort of, like, messy like version of sexual violence, which is mediated, right? Like it's not physical violence, though there are some allegations of physical violence in this couple, but like it's kind of this it's I don't know exactly what I want to say. It's like a slow motion car crash that is like simultaneously like perfectly out in the open, but also like desperately like wants to be hidden. You know what I mean? Like there's this like dual desire to like finally like express something, which is why like this happened like on the internet, right? Like it's in public, like and he's like, you know, he's allegedly contacting people who kind of know her, right? And the reason, like one of the reasons like she was able to investigate this, or Spiegel was able to investigate this, is they contacted like so basically, I think we should go back and say, like, one of the things he's alleged to have done is make, like, a fake LinkedIn profile posing as Collien. And now Collien is like, I've never had a LinkedIn profile. I got one in 2024 so that I could take my identity back. But Ulmen is alleged to have made a fake LinkedIn profile and contacted, like, people that they knew as a couple, including their insurance broker, right? Like, that's someone who wants to be caught, right? It's not like super, like, that's why I say it's like not quite right to say it's repressed. It's like it's very on the surface of like please, like, tell, like, let me speak about it. And it's just like, I don't know if it's fair to say like that's particularly German, or that couldn't happen elsewhere, because I'm sure it could, but like you can make the argument that there's like something sort of unique about it, right?
Hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. Like, I mean, yes.
As a German cultural trait. Yeah, maybe.
What's the result of the reckoning here?
What's the result of the reckoning here?
Yeah.
Legislation is changing. I think they're very serious now about creating the laws that allow for a more stringent prosecution of digital violence, as it's called. So that's a political consequence. We're yet to see how Ulmen, if he one day is going to speak publicly again, what is he going to say? Of course, the specific case against him is now being brought in Potsdam, as you mentioned. But culturally, I don't know. I mean, what's going to happen to this brand of humor?
I mean, I think it's like pretty
immune.
No, I think it's not fun. I mean, in the US at least, like this brand of humor has just become more and more right wing, right? Like it's just considered more and more like uncouth, unsophisticated. I mean, this is also why we're like, I don't really watch that stuff, you're like, I don't really know about it. And I'm like, I don't really know that much about it either, because I consider it unsophisticated and crass. And like, I don't think like, I don't need to, like, it's not titillating to me to have some fucking schlubby guy be like vagina, like it's not funny, like who cares? But I think there are like huge groups of people, I would like to say that they're just men, but probably women as well, like that find this really funny, because I think that they like I mean, maybe it relates to this like sort of version of repression, or like feeling like you can't talk about things, or you can't talk about like your sex or like bad impulses you have, and this kind of like pressure that results in like this kind of like outburst type of stuff, right? Like it's like I'm not in the US, I mean this kind of like the whole woke humor conversation with the right is centered around the idea that like the left oppresses the like people and doesn't let them say anything, and like doesn't let them like speak freely, and doesn't let them like express like naughty ideas, and the right like lets us express naughty ideas, right? So like, and there is a desire to do that for some, for reasons that you could get into. It's not that hard to understand.
I'm thinking back to this 2024 documentary that Collien did on the fake porn, deep fake porn community. And they chat, like the reporters doing the documentary and Collien herself, they chat with a bunch of people who do this.
Yeah, who make the deep fake porn.
The deep fake porn. And so there is this online culture of anonymous people who engage in this stuff, and it's clearly like a fetish.
Well, yeah, and they just say, one of them
Ulmen
says it's an art hobby. They don't even say it's a fetish. I mean, it clearly is a fetish, but they like one of the reporters
revel in this
asks,
sort of like technical proficiency.
Yeah,
of it,
and like
say that, oh no, we're doing this because it's a technical challenge, and we want to have the satisfaction of like the perfect product and so forth. And I just think that this is also part of a larger I don't know, online fetish culture that's going really a little bit off the rails.
Well, it's also quite antisocial.
And it's very antisocial if you're sitting at home in front of your screen, and your satisfaction is in sort of like this virtual worlds.
Well, there's also, I mean, this is a conversation also in the US, but in this documentary that she made, she interviews several people who are the victims of deepfake and AI porn. And one of them, I can't remember who, one of them says, she found like some of the people who were making images of her.
Yeah.
And she says one of them was a pensioner, right? Like just like an old guy who like sits in his garden usually.
Yeah.
And it's like, these are people who are not integrated into society, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't, not in a kind of dramatic like incel way, just like, older people don't go out much, don't have many friends, like, and now there is like a thing on their phone that they can do all day. And like it's kind of exciting, like, and it's a parasocial aspect, right? Because it's they focus on these famous women that they see and maybe resent, like, I'm sure for just very basic like misogynistic reasons, they resent these like famous beautiful women who are on TV, and they resent that they like don't have access to them, even though of course no one has access to them except their friends. And like they can like participate in like society in a way that they like completely control, and actually in a way that like takes control away from the famous women who they resent, right? And yeah, I think it's like just getting worse and worse. It's like a sort of like perverted like video game culture, right? Like a perverted like this whole AI, we were talking, I've been writing a piece about AI companions and AI boyfriends for a long time, and it's like it is like a perverted video game thing. Like it's not like solving a loneliness problem. It is solving a time and bad feeling problem, which is by like allowing people to like funnel all of their free time into a little project, and also funnel all of their bad feelings into this like elaborate like parasocial world that they are in complete control of.
In any case, what the German political class is now doing is trying to legislate, bring in laws that make a lot of like certain of these things illegal when they pertain to sexual stuff. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it. I think it's necessary to create the possibility to prosecute, but it's certainly not going to be the resolution to the problem.
You know, I would also like to say about Collien Fernandes, she is quite like upbeat, and I think it's like quite nice to see, actually. And this, you know, we were talking about this Sasha and Eula Lobo podcast, and they were doing this like liberal like false concern for the child, and they're like, maybe she shouldn't have made it public because what about the child? And actually, like at some point, you know, Collien Fernandes, at least on social media, is acting like very empowered, and she always has. And also in this documentary, she like introduces it, and she still smiles, and she like makes faces, and she's not like crying, and she's not like I'm a victim. She is really like, I'm not going to let this ruin my life, even though like you've done this horrible thing to me. And like I think that is very admirable. And quite, you know, like she's still going to like shows, like she's still like doing normal Instagram type of stuff, like she's still doing normal things even though this huge like news story has come out. And I think that is like a heartening development, because during the Me Too era, like the women just had to go out and like trot around and cry, like it's like this whole like, if you're the victim of violence and you're a woman, you have to go and cry and tell your story and be like, I'm so vulnerable, I'm so hurt, like all this kind of stuff. And then it like reinforces what I believe are like very problematic ideas about gender difference and like inequalities, actually, that I think are persistent in this German feminist stuff today, which like is this like, oh, isn't it so terrible? Men are so terrible. Like, of course, all men are terrible. I'm not terrible. I'm one of the good ones. But like men, we're so bad. And it's like as if you're so different. Like, you know what I mean? And this thing when it's like, oh, men are so bad and women are crying and men are so bad and women are crying. Like, it's much better to be like, yeah, this, like, I have been the victim of a horrible crime and fuck you. Like, that's, why should I have to like ruin my whole life because I was victimized? You shouldn't.
A little bit in the way that you spoke about being an actor and inhabiting the role and then becoming what you actually played, you know, and this reinforcement mechanism also, of course, applies to, I don't know, online behaviors, for example.
Of course, you just harass someone every day online. You
do one thing and then you become more and more and more extreme. And I think as much as I'm skeptical about like the idea that you could legislate absolutely everything, that's gonna have so many problems that's also going to create, because of course you now already see this with this technical attempt to legislate AI imagery and so forth, and then people say, oh, but this is gonna hamper like science and development and so forth. So it's really, really tricky. But on the other hand, I think that it certainly would help if people would be more afraid of getting caught when they do litigious stuff online, and they clearly are not. So this could work as a slight, you know, guardrail.
Well, it's also interesting because I think, like, you know, you mentioned in this documentary that they made about the deepfakes, like part of the quote art hobby, that's what some of the creators call it. They're like, you know, it's not you know, some of them say it's a fetish, but they're like, it's not a fetish, it's an art hobby. Like, and they do get really excited about like the technical difficulty of what they're doing and like learning more and more about the tools and things like this. But I also think like a lot of these people, you know, are like the AI platforms that they use and the porn platforms that they use, like they don't know how those work. They don't know how IP addresses work. Like they don't know like how easy it is. Like it's
to track them down.
Well, yeah, I mean they could be tracked down, but I think like they failed to do it in this documentary, but that doesn't mean that it can't be done, right? And I think that there are lots of people who like would be very easily found out. And to me, like, I treat the internet as like a public place. And so if I do anything, even if I know like I can't be tracked, like I'm like, oh, I'm looking at this woman's Instagram that I don't, like I'm like I'm looking at this woman's Instagram that I hate. I'm like, she's gonna know that I looked at it, even though obviously like she will never know.
Yeah.
But for like lots of people, I don't think that they have that like
that reflex.
Yeah, they don't think that it's
behave as if you were watched.
They don't. Yeah, but they don't think it's public, right? Like, and that's also an interesting element of this, which is like it both is and it isn't. Like, it's not the same as doing something in the street.
Yeah.
But actually, many more people can see what you're doing, like on the internet than in the street.
Yeah. Probably also was a process, of course, for her to come to that point, to that conclusion.
I mean,
we don't. There's all sorts of things that we don't know about their.
She does their relationship, which was described as toxic, right?
Yeah.
But she also said to Der Spiegel that she said, or she maybe even in her complaint, that like this abuse that she alleges he committed was like ultimately an attempt to control her, right?
Yeah.
And by like impersonating.
Yeah, this is what the Spiegel article also says.
Yeah.
He was like, while he was going on record giving interviews and saying things like, "Oh, I think I'm the man that all feminists would,
Yeah, I take care of my kid and like this kind of stuff
about himself." So we don't. There's so many elements about his psychology or about their couple psychology or dynamics that we don't know, and that we can now, of course, like speculate about.
But I think that ultimately, like, I think it's very clear that like even when you watch this documentary that she made, like she is having quite disturbing experiences where at one point she talks to someone who is impersonating her, and they send her a picture of herself in bed, like a deep fake picture of her like looking cute in bed or whatever, and she like almost starts crying. But even so, she still is like, that's not me. She's really like insistent. Like she seems like she will not let it like stop her. It will affect her, but like that she will weather that. And I think that is actually like a really good development and good thing to see.
But she also has, in a way, no choice.
She does. I mean, she could totally collapse. She could have a nervous breakdown. She could like withdraw from the public eye. She's rich. She doesn't need to work anymore. Like she doesn't, she can like go stay with her. There are all sorts of things she could do. And she certainly did not have to like make this public a year after the like it came out in her life. And also, I was reading, just like Googling around, and like in October, so before this story broke, 6 months ago, she did like a little interview with Bild or something, and she said, she's like, oh, I'm dating again, like I'm going on the dating apps, like I'm kind of interested, like I never did that when I was single, like it was too soon. So like she gave this kind of peppy little interview about being single and how she was kind of excited to date. It doesn't seem, we can't know, but at least publicly, like she is living her life, which is good. And I think there was a time when the feminist idea and the political messaging was that women needed to perform their suffering about this in order to get political, legal rights and justice. So like if you don't demonstrate that this has harmed you, then it doesn't count as harm. And now I think or hope that like we have moved to a place where you can say, no, this is just objectively bad and like we should see justice for it and there should be punishment for it, but like the woman doesn't need to prove that by like ruining her own life, right? Or letting her life be ruined. Thanks for listening. You can listen to more episodes of Airlift at blnreview.de. There you can also find all our recent essays and back catalog of stories. Subscriptions for Berlin Review start at just €5 a month. If you're enjoying Airlift, please follow us wherever you listen and leave a review so more people can find our work. This episode was produced by Caitlin Roberts with Najla Saeed. I'm Lauren Euler. See you next time.